Good afternoon. Welcome to the Finance and Budget Delegated Committee for January 29th, 2024. Welcome to the new year. I'd like to start with welcome and acknowledgement of country. Wodonga Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first inhabitants of the country and as traditional custodians of the land. We respect their ancestors, elders and young people and recognise their continuous connections to lands, waters and communities across the country. Apologies, there are none, we're all here. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yeah, I have a secondary conflict on item 5.5 due to my employer having a request or open issue with the council. Thank you. Well, probably general.
Also, I have a conflict on 5.5, having an application before the council. Moving on to confirmation of the minutes. Do I have a motion? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Hall, any discussion? I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Councillor Lowe.
Just procedural. I need to be an apology from 250 onwards. When would I do that? Ask for that permission.
Councillor Lowe, when you have to leave the room, just put your hand up, notify the chair and we'll deal with it in a minute. We'll record it. Thank you. The next item is reports for determination, starting at 5.1, 2024-25 rate cap. Do I have a motion? Councillor Chamberlain.
As per the recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Chamberlain.
This is a recommendation that the committee note that the 24-25 rate cap of 2.75% that the state government has set for us should be taken in our budget deliberations in full. We did a lot of work last year and to keep our rate increases to a minimum, so we took under the cap last year in 2% as opposed to 3.5. This year I think it's only financially responsible that we take what has been a fairly reasonable cap set by the state government into account and take it in full in order to be financially responsible going forward. And of course the next section of it, part 2, is the assumptions for the next financial year. You've got to draw a line somewhere and what you're using this year is probably the appropriate line to draw because anything else is just a guess. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, rate caps are set as a one-size-fits-most ideal for most communities. We all know that not every community grows or reduces at the same rate, and the levels of services that are required for each individual council are all different. And you know, we'll see later on what not taking the rate cap has accelerated, I imagine. So I'm in favour of taking the rate cap this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Other councillors? Councillor Quilty.
Thank you. I would like to emphasize that when we're talking about the rate cap 2.75% today, we're not talking about accepting or not accepting it, charging or not charging it. We are simply discussing the budget assumptions and whether we are happy to work with this figure as a starting figure to start building the budget. It is a line in the sand that we make a decision to draw to build the rest of the budget on. This figure may be further manipulated, adjusted by fees and charges. For example, waste charges may be included or excluded from this amount. There are political aspects to this. All I want to say is we're not making a decision today whether we're going to charge 2.75% of general rate inclusive or exclusive of anything. All we are deciding is where we draw the line in the sand before we even start creating the budget. Personally, I would always like to start with lower lower figure just to make our work a bit more interesting and fun and make us alert and not overspend. But this year we are not, money is tight everywhere and we're not rolling in though we are not going to find a lot of room. So a 2.75 is probably okay, even though I think that maybe 2 or 2.5 would be an interesting exercise to start building a budget from and have a little bit of more money as a bonus at the end, if we even can talk about bonuses in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coulty. Other councillors? Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The 2.75% budget assumption for the 2024-2025 financial year has my full support. Anything less than that, I believe, would be negligent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Yes, I'd just like to add that Councillor Coulty is correct. It's just to work, the staff need to have an idea which way we're heading and with the information we receive. So they're looking at putting in 2.75% for budget assumptions. It doesn't mean that that's set in stone. Also, the recommendation is suggesting, like, if we want it to go above 2.75, probably now's the time to mention that, because on the 31st of January is probably, we have to notify the Essential Services Committee, Service Commission, whether we do intend to apply for an exemption for a higher figure. So this is just to confirm that we will not be going above the 2.75, but we'll be doing our budget assumptions on the 2.75 figure. I'd just like to add too, which generally at the end of the day, we do have waste, which is another charge on top of that, and that can add a little bit more to the overall rate intake. It might be over 3%, but that's something we can look at as well in the budget going forward. So 2.75 isn't necessarily what extra you get charged on your rates. It can be a little bit higher with the waste, and I'm for keeping our rate rises to as minimum as possible. So I'll be looking at that going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain to close.
Thank you. As has been pointed out, this is an assumption for our people to work on. The likelihood of us going over 2.75 are slim to none, because as Councillor Hall quite correctly pointed out, we really should be giving the Essential Services Commission a heads up if we were looking to do that by the end of January. That's why this meeting was held, or was scheduled for today, because we could get in under that line and give us the options if we needed to go that way. I think 2.75 is a responsible way to go, and obviously I'm supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? in favour, councillor Simpendorfer, councillor Chamberlain, councillor Mildren, councillor Hall, councillor Poulton, councillor Lowe. Those against? Councillor Quilty. The motion is carried. The next item before us is item 5.2, Financial Sustainability Review. In introducing this item, this has come about through work and approaches that have been going on for some time, and a number of councillors have been raising questions and asking issues, and staff that have come on board in recent times have found things that needed to be addressed in our budget processes that hadn't been addressed in the past. And in essence, we're facing some financial headwinds. So this report that we're dealing with financial sustainability has been called by the council to look at and to get some information, at least as a starting point, to deal with the financial headwinds that we may have coming, or that we do have coming before us. So do we have a motion, councillors? Councillor Simpendorfer, as per recommendation. Councillor Chamberlain, Councillor Simpendorfer.
Yeah, as you rightly pointed out, Mr. Mayor, this was a review commissioned by us, or asked for by ourselves. The scope of works was set by us, and it's been completed and now received. So hence the recommendation here to note that it's completed, and as a recommendation says that the purpose of that report is to consider its appropriateness as we move through the budget process. So it'll have my support to receive and note for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorfer. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, as Councillor Simpendorfer said, it was commissioned by us at a previous Finance and Budget Committee meeting in order to give us options and give us a clear picture of exactly where we do stand. We were fully aware, because our Finance Department was showing us, as the Mayor has stated, that we've got some headwinds coming financially, and we needed to be sure that we had all the information, or as much information as physically possible, in order to make some of the very difficult decisions going forward. As this says, we're going to receive and note this report, which is available, or a version of is available for the public, and I urge the public to read it. And we are going to consider the appropriateness and feasibility of the recommendations made in it in some of the decisions that we have to make over the next couple of months in preparations for our budget. So I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Other councillors? Councillor Quilty.
I certainly will be supporting the motion to receive and note the report that we have commissioned. I would like to join Councillor Chamberlain in urging the public to read, or at least look over, this report. However, I find that this report will be of somewhat limited use to me personally in working on the budget. This report was, we paid a substantial amount of ratepayers' money for this. It was done over 6 weeks, which included Christmas break, and of course had its limitations. I found that report a bit generic and incomplete, and certainly have an expectation gap of what it has provided. A few examples to point out to the public who might be reading it is cash flow. It excludes some income streams in the projections, which it includes in the actuals due to lack of information. There are some expenses that are not also not in the actuals, but in the projection, which are not completely clearly explained in the cash flow and the like. So I think the figure that we end up projected for 32-33 has a lot more work to put into it, and not to be taken as gospel. As far as recommendations are concerned, I found them a bit generic and done by a template. Sort of a little bit scary. They might produce the impression as if we don't do it, but we do things. For example, the recommendation to look at the entire life cycle of any project and asset is a thing that's obvious and should be done. And we have done it when we had deliberations, for example, on the Senior Citizen Centre, etc. So we will, thank you, we will need to look, it's a good start, and we will need to look at a lot more things when we are trying to implement the recommendations, and we welcome public feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Other councillors? Councillor Poulton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like my colleagues before me, I do encourage people with or without a financial background in our community to have a read of this publicly available report. I won't go through every single sort of recommendation or consideration that councils will be making in the future, but certainly it was interesting to note, and I've just underlined there, reviewing and where appropriate, divesting assets at a price that exceeds acquisition, holding and development costs. And I know my colleagues in the room will know that's been a topic of conversation for 3 years in this particular council group. But the other one I noticed too, one of the recommendations was that, we take the increasing rates each year in line with the rate cap set by the Minister for Local Government, plus also then reduce annual operating expenditure by $2.8 million. That's a pretty big feat. I guess details are coming to light around rate capping, the impact that has on us. I mean, if let's just say the assumption of 2.75 is kept and we don't go above that, I'd love if everything that I pay for in life had only increased by 2.75% in 12 months. I think we're going to be very conservative in trying to achieve something here. And this report sets out quite wonderfully for the community to read how difficult a job the councillors and council staff have ahead of them to get our financial sustainability in check within the next couple of budget cycles. So the recommendation as moved will have my support today.
Other councillors? Councillor Lowe?
Yeah, thank you. I'll be supporting the noted document here too. And as identified by Councillor Poulton, there's been recommendations and one of those is to get 2.8 million out of the overall budget. And we as councillors and as a council need to entrust our CEO and his staff to be able to bring back to us those 2.8 reductions. And we need to sit down and have healthy discussions as councillors on if we agree with that, if we don't agree with that. But I think we need to entrust the powers that be to provide us that information first and then have discussions later on. So I'll be supporting the document tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Hall?
Yes, I will be supporting noting and noting and receiving this document. Whilst I felt it lacked in information I needed personally to be able to decide on certain things going forward, the overall, there are some parts that will help us inform in making the budget, this budget going forward and the next 10 years with our forecasts. It has highlighted some issues within council. I think we've been probably living beyond our means in many ways. There's also the fact that many of the developments projects that we've done didn't provide ongoing costs, reoccurring costs, operational costs going forward, which probably in hindsight may change the way you might have decided on a particular project. We've had a lot of new development in this town, and the ongoing costs, reoccurring costs, are substantial. It's not, we've got the library, which is a service which is great to provide, but then we've got the gallery that runs at a huge loss. We've got Barranduda Fields. Where's the cost factor in that going forward? We've got a lot of issues that we have to deal with as a council, and this has highlighted some of them, but I'm sure there's many more that we'll be dealing with going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. What this report has done has reinforced and highlighted the fact that we have some solid and serious structural issues in our financial situation, and that we need to deal with taking, as Councillor Lowe said, 2.8 million from our recurrent expenditures. We need to deal with these structural changes in a manner where it's going to put us in good stead for the long-term management of the organisation. And it's a credit to our CEO and the finance staff to have brought these things to a head and to have put us in a position where we could commission this report and get the information provided. Now, I've heard other councillors say that for them there was, not sufficient detail, and I think I'll probably go along with that. The other thing that I see is the report raises a number of things that come up to me as contradictions in some ways, or items that, things that need to be done that would potentially increase our recurrent expenditure, but they're things that do need to be done, particularly in relation to our asset management area. There's quite a deal of work that we need to put in place there, and there's quite a deal of work that needs to be done in relation to developer contributions. The developer contributions thing is nothing new. We've been asking questions about that for some time. The asset management was something that we hadn't picked up on until recent times, within the past 12 months or so. So I certainly am supporting this report and noting this report, and that we consider the matters raised in it, and there's a range of options raised in it that we need to consider throughout the budget process. Councillor Simpendorfer to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Hearing the other councillors around the table and their concerns that this report didn't probably go as far as what they'd hoped, then perhaps maybe we need to spend a bit more time on defining what that scope is, because they did deliver on what we asked them to do. There's about 20 odd recommendations from point 6 onwards that the community can look at. But I think what it highlights to me and what I'm hearing around the table is how complex, I'm sure it's no surprise to anyone listening, local government's complex. It's slow, and it's some tough decisions at times, and that's what we're facing. So at least with this FSR, it is highlighting some of those issues for us, and it will form part of, I guess, whether we deem it appropriate and whether we deem it necessary for us moving forward as a city, and especially moving into a year where elections are going to be later this year, and setting up those who come up after us, assuming some or a lot of us may not be here next time, setting up that next group of councillors for success and a process and as much information and data as they can to make the appropriate decisions for the city moving forward. And it's complex, there's no doubt about that. And I think this highlights how hard it is, because we know our community want low rates, but they still want services. And these things are coming to a head, and they're coming to a head rapidly. As we heard the Mayor said, we're facing some strong headwinds. So encourage everyone, like has been said, to read the report, have your input, and reach out to your councillors with your views. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Simpendorfer. I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item is Economic Development Service and Strategy Review 5.4. Sorry, Service Catalogue, sorry. Jumped one. 5.3 Service Catalogue. Do I have a motion? Councillor Quilty. As per recommendation, Councillor Chamberlain second. Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that service catalogue in front of us be received and noted. We have been presented with a catalogue of services this council provides. The catalogue has been compiled by management and staff on council, facilitated by the external provider. There is an extensive list of services that outlines what is being done for the community, how much we spend on it, and what the key performance indicators or performance measures are for all the services. It's a very interesting read. I encourage the community to read this and to get back to us with the feedback. The community version is somewhat abridged. I, as councillor, would like to have more information when we start making decisions, in particular implementations decisions in relation to the previous report, such as how much a service, and I would like to hear from the community the same thing, how much the service is utilized, how useful it is, do we exceed the demand, or does the demand exceed what we provide? Do we have sufficient staff? Are staff over or under capacity, sufficiently qualified or too much? And a lot of the things. Services cannot just be taken out on a whim. It takes years, it takes a couple of years to take the service out. It takes some time to provide more service if we need to. And it's a long and slow body of work, but it is something that needs to be done in order to achieve efficiencies. And I would very, very much like community feedback to let us know what services are useful, what services are lacking, and what services are underutilized. Thank you.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Thank you. Just to reiterate what Councillor Quilty has just said, I'd really like people to read this again. And can I just say, the fact that this is available at all shows a level of transparency in Wodonga Council that we haven't seen in a long time. So both this and the previous item are giving a lot of information to the members, to the public, that they probably haven't had, or they've had to dig very hard to find previously. And I think that's a good thing. And it starts a conversation about what is appropriate in services, what you require, as Councillor Quilty has said, and perhaps what we can afford to pare back in the aim of trying to keep our budget within the limits it needs to be. But I think the main thing here is to point out that this is a starting point. It's the first version. It's probably not perfect, but it's a good first attempt. And it shows to me a level of transparency that we need to be aiming for. And I do appreciate it happening, and I'll be supporting the receiving and noting of it accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. Any other councillors? Councillor Hall.
Yes, I'd just like to add to what Councillor Chamberlain has said, and he makes a good point that the transparency with, especially with the setup of this finance budget committee, is something that this council hasn't had. And I think, you know, whilst we're going to, over the period of going through all our service reviews and our budget, we're going to come across some, you know, hard decisions. And our community are going to be so much more well informed. I think it's the best thing that we did was to set up this committee. It's given council the insight into a bit more detail as to what we've never had before, and then that flows on to our community. They're more informed, and so I commend our council for supporting this, and I look forward to being able to set us on a better financial strategy and future going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like my colleagues, I want the community to read this, but being the realists, I'll probably just judge by the one person who's in the gallery. I bet our streaming numbers, geez, would be competing against Netflix and all the others. And I'm guessing without a town crier anymore, there's probably not going to be many people in the community that know we're even doing this work as much as councils would like to hope and think they take this as seriously as we do. It's probably going to be unfortunate. But what I will say is the service catalogue is very enlightening. It's very simple to explain what it is the council does in the community. And it does probably create very good opportunity for conversation with councillors, with all community members, however we find a form in doing that. to be able to paint the picture of what we currently do and maybe what we could afford to do a little bit less of, because I think that will be where we might end up. But so the recommendation that the service catalogue be received and noted, I'll receive and note it and hope the public find a copy of it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, I echo Councillor Chamberlain's words on the transparency. I think it's really good. It's really good, especially to put it out into community so they understand just exactly what council does and how many services it does provide. And to those people that say it should be just, roads, rates and rubbish, you can look at 25 services in here just at a bare minimum that I bet you if you asked any one of them, they'd say, no, keep that. So we've got to find the balance about not taking the community out of community and have that long-term strategic approach to this. But I look forward to the odd community member that will sit down and take the time to read this and hear their feedback too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Quilty to close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it is an extensive list of services to read. There are, if I'm not mistaken, 42 or 43 services on the list. And I would like to acknowledge the huge amount of work our staff put into putting this catalogue together. It is indeed a great start to transparency in what we provide and what we do for the community. And I'm just so very glad that we were able to start this committee. I'm grateful for the support this committee receives from staff. And there is simply not enough time in general council meetings to deal with such body of work. And it is absolutely essential in order to identify efficiencies, run a successful council, not go too deeply into ratepayers' pockets, and provide the services that are in demand and necessary for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now the next item is Economic Development Service and Strategy Review 5.4. Do I have a motion? Councillor Poulton, as per recommendation. Councillor Simpendorfer the second. Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is another one we hope the community read. Looking forward to seeing the community feedback off the back of this one. Whilst not necessarily encompassing everything that councillors have considered and thought about over many conversations, the body of work there is now prepared for, importantly, the community to have a look at and have a say. So that'll receive my support. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Simpendorfer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very straightforward. It's received, noted and out to the community. Before I'll comment further on it, I'd like to hear the feedback from the community before making any further judgment or comments. Thank you.
Other councillors? Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is indeed a useful report to read. We already have a department that looks after economic development, and it is in the service catalogue with its performance measures. And I encourage anybody who is interested in reading this report to also read it against the what's in service catalogue. Economic development is important. It is how we grow our city and its economics, what assets we have, what opportunities we have to grow and expand. It includes, but is not limited to, our Logic Industrial Precinct, and it is a good idea at this stage when we're looking at the services to also look at what we can do to grow and to attract more business, more residents, and more, hopefully more wealth into our region. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
I put my hand up to be a councillor for a couple of reasons, and one of them was the youth of today, and it's that long-term strategy. And economic development and youth, you kind of think, what goes hand in hand there? And I believe in the waterfall effect. So the more businesses that we can attract to Wodonga and Albury for that fact, the more we can build our logic estate, the more we can get businesses into our CBA, it has a flow-on effect. It supplies jobs for our community, and therefore they spend their money in our community. I think it's 1 in 4 from memory. So every dollar someone earns, it goes around in the community 4 times. And eventually, probably asking, what's that got to do with the youth? But eventually, those jobs that are created for you and I then flow down to our kids, because people need part-time help, because people are spending more money in our community. Economic development is very broad, and it means something different to everybody. So I'm really looking forward to listening to our community to see what their feel on it is. And I'm also really looking forward to the discussion between us councillors to how we can minimise what we can do as a council that maybe hasn't been done here before or isn't getting done somewhere else before, but broaden our thinking a little bit to try to minimise the impact to our ratepayers. We know commercial properties and that do that, but what else have we got? What else can we do? And I look forward to having those discussions with the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain?
Thank you. Again, this was one of the services that we've highlighted for review, which is why this has come back up and why we've gone through it. I think in the past our economic development strategy has been a bit patchwork, and the whole idea of this review, I think, is to have it more efficient, and as Councillor Lowe said, you know, set us up for the future. It's very important for that. Economic development is absolutely critical within the workings of the council going forward, and this review, I think, will be well received, but we'll see what the feedback is, and we can obviously make a determination at a future meeting on what the public have told us about what we've done here. Thank you.
Councillor Hall?
I'm not going to add too much. Economic development is very important, not just for Wodonga, but for our local region. If you have a look at the key indicators in this report, it's got 60% live and work in Wodonga, but there's 40% that live outside of Wodonga. So having a strong economic policy and strategy as for Wodonga is important also to our smaller regional towns that come and work in Wodonga. So there's a lot of sort of good information in this, and I think it's worth, I hope people have a bit of a read of it. And it gives us as a council a little bit more information that we can have, you know, with our decision making in getting this review done. So I'm very positive about it. Thank you.
To make a few comments about this report, there's a lot of information in here that's good information. There's some very interesting recommendations. Broadly speaking, we need to, in my view, be raising the bar with economic development and lifting it to a higher level and taking advantage of many opportunities that are unique to Albury, Wodonga and Wodonga. I don't think we do that as well as we possibly could be doing it in the current situation, and that brings me to the disappointment in this report, and that disappointment is that fundamentally it's suggesting that we should be just doing business as usual, at least in the next few years, and looking to a stepped process to raise the bar. I think by the time that comes around, we'll have missed the boat and the window of opportunity will have probably flowed past us. So that aspect I'm disappointed in. However, having said all that, I really do think this is a document that our community should take an interest in. We should have our local business houses looking at this stuff, and we should have our Chamber of Commerce looking at this stuff, and we should be getting informed, knowledgeable responses back into the council about this. So in terms of putting it out for exhibition and comment, I'm happy to support it, but I'm foreshadowing that there are some things in this document that will make me think long and hard before voting whether or not to adopt it. Councillor Poulton to close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Enjoyed hearing that conversation from a few people. As one of the 40% that doesn't live in the city but contributes economically to the city's success, so it's good to hear that acknowledged. But the other point I think you make is around the opportunity. That was a good one, Mr. Mayor, around opportunity, because there's no doubt that as far as economic development goes, this city's missed a cycle of opportunity. Opportunity will come around again, and I guess the aim, whether it takes us steps to get there, and given the scheme of the rest of our deliberations today around our financial position, we really do have to take baby steps in this particular realm at this point in time. So hence look forward to hearing what the community have to say more importantly. But I think that's a sound recommendation that was put before us, given full consideration to everything that's happening currently for this organisation and the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. The next item, I have a conflict, and Councillor Chamberlain, all yours, Mr. CEO. I'll go first then. I have a conflict in this matter because I have an application before the council.
I have a similar, although secondary conflict, in as much as my employer has an application before the council, so thank you.
Councillors, in the absence of the Mayor and Deputy Mayor as Chair and Deputy Chair, I'll take a motion for the Acting Chair to be seconded and voted upon.
Mr. CEO, I would like to nominate Councillor Hall as the chair for the next item.
And do I have a seconder?
Yeah, happy to.
A vote on that matter, thanks. Unanimous? Thank you. Councillor Hall to take the chair.
Okay, now we move to 5.5, compliance and enforcement service review outcomes. Do I have a recommendation mover? Councillor Sippendorfer moves. A seconder?
Thank you very much, Chair. Not too much to say on this. I think that the 3 points there highlight the recommendation that we're supporting the compliance and enforcement service review that's attached and a business as usual for now. But obviously that may change throughout discussions through the budget process, so fairly straightforward to accept this report. I haven't got too much more to add unless I hear from the other councillors, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Other councillors to speak to? No. Councillor Coulty.
Thank you. So this has been one of the service reviews that we have performed. This is the service that we are legally obligated to provide in order to monitor compliance and enforce a number of acts, such as Domestic Animal Act, local laws, Building Act, to name but a few. There is a whole host of them. The service review focused on not whether the service should be provided, but how to make it more efficient. And there are a number of options. Option one is recommended but not preferred is business as usual. There is an option which is preferred and includes some improvements such as digitization and redirecting more staff and redirecting more resources and employing more staff. However, this is not the recommended option given the outcomes of the financial sustainability review. I will be supporting the business as usual option. However, I think having this discussion and review of the services is slightly premature. Having the service catalog in front of us now and having the review done by AC, even though I wasn't complimentary of it, is helpful to see the big picture and the resources that we have and the services we have to spread our resources across. So I'll just set with business as usual for now, and we will have to look at the whole host of services that we provide in the future. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that to a vote. All those in favour? Unanimously. No, okay. It's unanimously. Thank you. We'll now get the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor back in. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Thank you for that in our absence. 5.6 Lake Hume Reserves Service Review Outcomes. Do I have a motion? Councillor Poulton, as per recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one's an interesting service review to be done with the recommendation there before us around entering, or I should say continuing, I guess, an agreement between ourselves and the Goulburn Murray Rural Water Corporation, particularly around the maintenance and upholding of the high standard of particularly recreational access points around Lake Hume, so our Lake Hume reserves. There's no doubt about it, when our Lake Hume is at 100% or close to, it's a wonderful thing to have our facilities right there beside, and people do come far and wide, not just from Wodonga residents, but certainly outlying areas, and it also contributes quite cost effectively based on the figures in this report towards a commercial, economic impact. The gain far outweighs the cost for us as a council. I mean, making sure that we present one of our natural resources wonderfully and accessibly for people that want to come there. So a little bit of tourism economy. I'd love to know what the financial impact would be off the back of that. But there's no doubt when you're competing against something like a Lake Mulwala that does have waterside access all the time, except for when they promote it and say that they're going to draw down and make it a once-off. We need to utilise these assets the best that we can. So as recommended there today, receives my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Poulton. Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, I think it, having grown up on this lake and I've used all these reserves often, and you meet people from everywhere out there. So the dollar for these people coming into our community and is one thing, but the fact of all our community that actually get out there and use it as well. And I think with Goulburn Murray's Water Corporation's contribution to the maintenance program. I think our overall cost was 66,000 per annum. Getting nods, I remembered that correctly. I think that's minute in the whole scheme of things. I think you wouldn't speak to a person that goes out there that wouldn't appreciate the work that gets done out there. So, thank you. I'll be supporting the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Lowe. Any other councillors? Councillor Chamberlain?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo the sentiments of my fellow councillors. It is a very small amount, but it's a significant amount in what it provides in keeping those reserves in good fashion. So I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Chamberlain. Other councillors? Put the motion, councillor Poulton. Okay, put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item before us is 5.7, Sustainability Service Review, Proposed Scope of Works. Do I have a motion? Councillor Chamberlain.
As per recommendation, thank you.
As per recommendation, do I have a seconder? Councillor Poulton, Councillor Chamberlain.
Again, this is another one of these service reviews that we've done. And sustainability is one of the words that is used a lot and has a lot of references around what it is. In this case, it's obviously a financial issue, but there's a sustainability department, which this recommendation is basically almost about a scope of works in order to almost change what it does. It's still about sustainability. It's still about making sure that we keep everything under control. But as you'll see in the options, option 4, which is the recommendation, that it presents a cost-saving approach. And in the current financial situation, that became very attractive to me. Although not only was it recommended for me, but obviously the cost-saving approach became attractive straight away. And it outlines a couple of changes in the way that we do things in this department, and I think it's appropriate that we're going ahead with that. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Poulton. Reserve. Any other councillors? Councillor Lowe.
I too will be supporting the document and the recommendation here as well, and knowing, as Councillor Chamberlain said, sustainability, again, it's another one of those things that means a lot of things to a lot of people and different people. And I'm happy to take the advice that we won't get, we'll still meet our obligations of the sustainability as we're meant to, and also our wishes of our community too. So as long as we keep maintaining those two, then I'm happy to go with the recommendation. Thank you.
Other councillors? Councillor Poulton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, Councillor Lowe picked up on a good point there, meeting our obligations and also meeting community expectation. And I think the officers did a great job in coming up with a sensible recommendation, all things considered. So, yeah, we'll receive my support. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Chamberlain.
I thank fellow councillors for their comments, and I think it is appropriate, as I said. I'll just reiterate again, the only issue I have with most of this stuff is you see the word sustainability. I like to see it prefaced with what sort, as in economic, environmental, whatever. There's a number of reasons for sustainability, and sustainability is crucial in almost all of them. But this is an appropriate path forward for this department. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The next matter is item 6. We go into confidential business. Do I have a motion? Councillor Hall.
Just what's recommended.
As rec, and Councillor Chamberlain. No discussion on that. I put the motion. We go into confidential. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Welcome back after we've had the confidential section. Item 7.2, adopt the in-camera recommendations. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Hall and Councillor Chamberlain. Any conversation, discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Mr. CEO, would you like to read the public outcome of the previous in-camera?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In relation to item 6.2, Valley Views Estate proposed declaration of a special charges scheme. Council's public component of the recommendation and the resolution is that the Finance and Budget Delegated Committee supports the intention of the proposed implementation of a special charges scheme for the Valley Views Estate as set out in attachment 1 to this report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. There being no further business, declare the meeting closed at 2:02.